Hey, this is Joe Gilder from HomeStudioCorner.com. Welcome back to Mix Together. We dealt with the bass. We slapped the bass in the last episode. Now we're going to dive into the guitars. So I'll be doing less bus processing here because the guitars are very, very different. The first is this one that plays throughout the whole song. And the second is this one that plays throughout some of the song. Okay, so biggest one I think that needs some attention is guitar 1. It is, from what I can gather, I guess it's an acoustic guitar. I just don't know. It's so muffled. Anyway, doesn't really matter. It's different sounding. I kind of like the lo-fi, not lo-fi, but the kind of dark nature of it, but it makes it a little muffled and a little muddy in the mix, so we're going to have to deal with that. So let's go back to our default EQ setting. First thing I will do is on my guitar bus, I'm going to slap on a high-pass filter, just getting everything below 75 because I know I definitely do not need that in these guitars. And this one being a little bit muddy already, I want to make sure there's nothing else down there in the lows that's going to cause problems. So let's just figure out what we need to cut. There's potential for boosting some highs. I just did a little bit of that and didn't sound all that great. But there's definitely something in the low mids that needs to be cut. I'm going to guess in the 150 range. Let's figure that out. I was wrong. It's more like 300 hertz. So 3 to 3, this is 327. That's where a lot of the frequencies are hanging out. So just a quick rundown. I'll mute the audio. If we look at this waveform, okay, we can see that it kind of has this kind of upside down bowl shape, right? So the majority of the frequencies are hanging out right where we've got this EQ, right? And there's a little bit down here, but mostly right in here, and then it feels unbalanced. It feels like there's too much there, not enough everywhere else. So when we're using EQ, most of the time, we're using it to balance things, right? There's too much of this frequency. This frequency is louder than everyone else, so we're saying, you sit down so that everyone else can be heard as well. That's kind of what we're doing. That's why I think, imagine it this way. You're a teacher, and you've got a class of 30 kids, or you're a music teacher, and they're all supposed to be sitting here listening. And if one stands up, is it easier to just have that one sit down so they're all the same height, or is it easier to tell everybody else to stand up? It's easier just to tell that one to sit down, right? It's kind of that same idea. We're looking here and we see it's really just this group of frequencies that's standing up above everybody else. If we just have them sit down, then we'll be able to hear everybody else better as well, versus having to boost these guys and boost these guys and these guys to match this guy. That's a lot of boosting. It just seems to make more logical sense to take the one guy that's standing up, or girl, and bring him down, or her, so that it's a little more even. So let's do that now. Turn the audio back on. Now I just hit the auto gain button because we're taking away, because there's so much in that. I'm about to sneeze, sorry. Okay, just had a quick sneezing fit, which I had to edit out. I'm back. So what I was saying is, sneezing is the weirdest thing. I don't understand what it is. As I was saying, because we've taken so much out, and that's the bulk of the frequencies, we need to reintroduce that volume to get it at the same volume we had before. Now, we can just do that with a makeup gain, but I found that if you're not using a high-pass filter, for the most part, this auto gain works pretty well. So I'm going to leave that on just for now, and possibly forever, to get this at the same volume it was before. Excuse me. So for me, it was more kind of two ranges of frequencies, right? So there was some up at 360 and some at 260, two different ranges that I felt like one wide EQ wasn't quite taken care of, so 2 EQ seemed to fix it. Versus this. It's still not the best sound in the world, and I realize I sound like an idiot. It is like an acoustic guitar, especially when it gets over into like the choruses, you start to hear it, or like right here. Okay, I think it's kind of working. It's not my favorite guitar tone in the world, but it's better than it was before. It felt very muddy in this section. Now it feels a little less muddy. Got more clarity there. We got to deal with that squeak sound. It's really loud. There's more clarity here. Let's see if it still sounds good at the beginning as well. This might be one. I'm not one for reverb on acoustic guitars normally, but something like this where it's A, it's not the best sound in the world, and B, not really just that. And it's kind of an interesting repetitive part. It might be interesting. No, I don't like it. Okay, so that feels a little bit better. Let's deal with the squeak on here, because there's a couple ways to deal with it. We can literally just manually go in here and just do this. But it kind of feels, you hear the whole thing cut out. So I don't want to do that first. My first instinct is to, where'd you go? My first instinct is to put a de-esser on this guitar. So let's do that. And my de-esser is actually a multi-band compressor that I've set to essentially be a de-esser. So it takes these upper frequencies and turns them down when the threshold is crossed. So here's what we're listening to up here. That worked pretty well. So you can see this lower part of the compressor is not doing anything. This upper part is just turning down these upper frequencies when they get too loud, which is really just at that spot. Here it is before, here it is after. Doesn't get rid of it, but it's in the recording, right? We're not trying to change the actual recording itself. That's not possible, but we can get rid of it, which I think works pretty well. So that feels pretty good. Let's check it over here. So a little EQ after the de-esser to brighten it up because it is catching some of those brighter parts. So it still gets the loudest squeaks, but lets some of these sections feel a little better. So that frequency was annoying me. I turned it down in the guitar bus. That just felt like the better place to do it because I've already got enough EQs over here. Let's introduce the second guitar. All right, I want this one to be a little less muddy also and a little brighter. This guitar would respond really well to my butter compression I talked about in the last video. Let's do that really quickly. Okay, that feels pretty good. It's kind of got this tightness to it without being over compressed. The bass feels a little loud in this section, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it down over here on the compressor. All right, now let's move on to the mandolin, which I count as part of the guitar family, at least in this mix. Mandolins are interesting because obviously they're bright, but they tend to have this mid-range kind of whoo that kind of rings out that you want to take care of. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's find a spot where he's playing or she's playing more consistently. not loving the compressor on that guitar. I'm going to take it off. I think it just works better without it. It's a little too processed sounding now that I think about it. Last thing, that mandolin I think needs a little taming. Some of those notes are jumping out a little much. So I'm going to do, hey, you know what I'm going to do? No, I'll do this. I'll do a compressor, fast attack, pretty quick release, really high ratio and threshold, and just trying to catch those peaks that are coming through, like over here. So the compressor's only working when he's playing his loudest, which is exactly what we want. Interesting. So that's the basic tone of the guitars. I don't know if I'm completely happy with that, but it feels pretty good. That main first guitar is still bothering me a little bit. I imagine once the vocals are in, it'll feel good, but I also want it to feel good at the intro, which is here. So when you download these tracks and you have them available to you, this is one of those where I love the performance of the guitar. I just don't love the recording of it. And I've done some kind of a drastic EQ at that mid-range to make it sound a little better. And I think we've made it better. Here's the before. Just that frequency is just coming out way too loud. So I think we've made it better. But it's not amazing, and that's part of mixing is you're going to be like, okay, it's good, it'll work. This is the tone I was given. I can make it a little bit better. I'm not going to be able to transform this one. So how can we make it work in the mix? And you move on from there. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I have one idea for making this part a little more interesting, but I'll share that with you in the next video because we're kind of running out of time here. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where we are. We're going to start diving into vocals next, and those background vocals, maybe the background vocals first and the lead vocals. And then we'll kind of circle the wagon a few times, make sure we're happy with everything, then we'll be done. Send it off to the people to see if they like it, get feedback, finish up, move on to the next one. All right, thanks for watching this video. See ya.